All right, welcome everybody. This is the CMO Brain Trust After Party, and we've been doing this meeting for a while. I've got some great people on this group, but one of the things we've been discussing about is what is the future of marketing. It seems like marketing is changing quite a bit. We know that there's always back in the past it's always been very metrics driven, and I'm assuming that it will continue to be. But with the core vitals update and with ranking, changes that are changing quite a bit, and with digital marketing in general, just really in a massive shift. I think a lot of people, a lot of marketing professionals out there are looking for what that future might be. So with that being said, we're just finishing up our brain trust today, talking about some of these questions. And I just want to open it up. We've got some great people here, Tony and Charlene. If you guys could maybe introduce yourself just for a second, and then let's dive in. Charlene, want to go first?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I have a fractional CMO team focused on helping small to large companies either have a bolt-on team to support their existing team or become the team with an outside perspective. A lot of times we're the only person the CEO can talk to because there are real pressing issues that a lot of times frontline staff and even their leaders can't understand because they've never been in a CEO hot seat before. Thrilled to serve people as a fractional CMO team across the country.
And I'd say I'm Tony Radnicki. I'm at the opposite end from Charlene. I'm in that traditional company, that on staff CMO, if you will. But it certainly is. I think if you look at both of our worlds, we're still dealing with the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah.
Very much.
So what are you guys seeing? What do you think the future of marketing is? What's your intuition telling you, or what's the data telling you? What's
the data is empathetic sensitivity is the new strong. That has to be the driver for a world that is so disconnected because of the mainstream of automation, that people are running to empathy and the energy of sensitivity so that we're more inclusive instead of exclusive. And in my space currently, right now, with the post-COVID, a lot of people are realizing that relationships is really what's going to pull them through versus metrics, which is usually led by, X, Y, and Z equals, this number. And now it's shifted completely since relationships had to change drastically through the introduction of Zoom meetings, digital marketing, and automation of nurturing relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you, Charlene. I think it's interesting because, I've been in marketing for a while, and for a while it was just the tactics, right? Getting it all done. And then it went to, okay, metrics. How do you do the ROI? How do you do this? And what I see is exactly what you're saying right now. The marketing role is changing much more into relationships, much more into personalization. Everyone expects everything to be connected all the time. And that whole personalization, taking advantage of my time, how do you make it valuable to me, is really, I think, what is changing marketing. In some ways it's very exciting because all of a sudden we've gone from something that was very activity to sort of measurement to being part of something that is alive and has momentum. And I don't know, it makes it a lot of fun.
And it's organic, right? Like it's
yes.
You're not in a box. Like you have to adapt and you have to, I love what you guys are saying. I just read an article this morning, was it this morning or yesterday, where the more people have died from drug overdose. Like drug overdoses have increased as a result of being more isolated.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so I think you're both 100% right. In fact, in a previous CMO meeting, we were talking about how the future of marketing is community. And I have another group of community managers, a fantastic group, and all the big brands I'm seeing right now are doing exactly what you're talking about, is building a community of people where, Shar, to go to your point, where there is sympathy, where there is empathy, where people can open up and where people can chat and collaborate
and help each other.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like it's a dynamic I think that COVID caused. Who would have ever thought we'd be having this kind of discussion on Zoom? Where we're like saying everything, right? And I think that has transpired across all of our businesses. People are comfortable that digital transformation just, accelerated itself.
Right. I think one of the things that I've seen too is because, sensitivity is the new strong, empathy is the new strong, people don't want to be talked down to or at. They actually want you to feel like we're connecting heart to heart.
Yes, yes.
And it's like, meet me where I am. Don't tell me where you want me to be, because I'm
Yes,
not going
I
to be there,
agree.
and I'm not going to go with you because it feels forced versus this natural progression of a relationship, and the wisdom to use automation when it's necessary versus when it's the first touch. And I guess the first expectation is to drive everything by systems and operations.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I really do believe that meet me where I am. Let's connect as people, even if it's digitally.
Right. Totally.
So here's a question. This is what challenges does this present? Because going back to my community of community managers, some of them report to marketing. And of course, marketing is one of the more turned over roles inside of the executive suite because you've got to prove return on ad spend. You got to prove a return. So what do you guys see that? How is that going to all play out when it's, when Tony, you go into your executive meeting and the team's like, hey, how much have we spent on marketing and how many leads has that brought us? Like, how do you see that? How's that conversation going to change, or how is that conversation going to be continued, or what do you see there?
I think that the conversation will change. Kind of what Charlene was saying. It's I think the expectations are different now. I mean, if I look at our client base, their expectations are a much more personal relationship, a much more community-based relationship, a much more, I'll say personal, that whole idea of a personalization, I think has become really key. Now, I will acknowledge, I think the struggle of bringing some companies, and probably mine in particular in some ways, through that to the importance of community is critical.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I think the hardest thing, Paul, for a lot of companies in transition is to just do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
When
change.
If you have just been doing it the same way and you've had these results,
and you were successful, right?
Yeah,
so
really successful. The one thing that I measure my metrics on as a fractional CMO is actually retention. I have led that this last year in retention.
Like client overall retention.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, Shar, you are hitting such a good point right now.
That is
such
good.
a good point. Yes.
And a lot of our clients who transitioned from COVID and came out of it and said, we survived, Shar, because you told us to focus on the one thing we could control was retention. Yeah. And so literally we have been onboarding clients who are like, Shar, we heard you did this retention strategy and we want that because we don't know if the next pandemic's going to hit us or what the next,
that's brilliant. That really is good.
And that's my metrics of helping my clients see the value of my services, as well as the team that I'm working with inside of their departments and their community, because retention is the one thing you can always measure no matter what happens in your company.
Wow.
That's excellent.
Yeah, totally. We, in the early days, I was part of a tech company and we brought in a churn consultant. His name is Greg Danes. Fantastic. And he actually works he goes upstream. He is we call him the retention doctor, but he goes upstream to marketing. And that's the quickest way to impact long-term business is retention and keeping your customers retained. But the quickest way to impact retention is actually marketing. You got to sell to the people who are going to stay, not sell to the people who are going to leave. And so figuring out who that is, and then to your point, Tony, building meaningful relationships with them. I think the business is changing. It is about relationships, and people do want that more personalized. And the brands that focus on relationships first are the brands that are going to be around, 20 years.
I think that's absolutely true. I really do. It's, marketing is no longer viewed as that group of people who sit in the room and come up with creative ideas. It really is the personalization, the human connection.
Right.
Yeah. So I have one other thought that I wanted to run by you all quickly. Research is showing that in order to build, so you talk about trust, you talk about vulnerability, you talk about relationships. Research shows that it takes about 7 face-to-face interactions to build high levels of trust with somebody. But when you translate that to the virtual world, it takes it's 6 positive interactions. And then it takes 16 positive interactions virtually to build high levels of trust with somebody. So yeah, we're on a Zoom meeting right now and we're connecting, but how do you think that impacts the future of marketing as well?
Ooh, that's a good question.
This is never going to go away. Paul, this is never going to go away. this introduction of living in a virtual space to do business is never going to go away now, because it has become a line item on the CFO's sheet to say, this is how we're going to do business, and virtual will never go away. And I think a lot of people have to change, because it's no longer, you can be invited or compelled. And so the invitation was COVID, and now it's going to be compelling, because business is never going to change again, because now we have the introduction of both types of strategies.
I agree. It'll never change. I absolutely agree. You know, I used to, at one point in my career, I worked for a video conferencing company, and we talked about this as being like the norm that everyone should have. And what's really fascinating to me personally is to see how what we talked about 10 years ago as becoming reality has become reality.
I love that. That's powerful.
You know, it's just amazing to see and to experience, right? That quantum leap of acceptance. You know, I guess it was what's that saying about this thinking of necessity or whatever. Anyway, it kind of happened, right? We were made to do it.
Right.
Totally.
Wow, that's totally true.
Well, this has been fantastic, you all. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights, and we'll see you at the next CMO Brain Trust.
You bet.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Nice seeing you all.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.